the beginning, don't obsess about the middle, because the middle is going to look different once you get there. Just look for a strong beginning and strong ending and get moving, wrote Chip and Dan Heath. Hello, today we will discuss a very inspirational book, Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. Human beings prefer to live in status quo because that is predictable. Humans wish the homeostasis to continue. We all dread change because it poses uncertainty. Present phase of global pandemics has posed serious questions on the world order ahead. No one is certain when it would end or whether it would end. Naturally, when one is not sure of understanding the change, managing the change becomes very stressful. Book titled Switch by Heath brothers is a guide to survive and celebrate change. The book presents a very interesting aspect of why we give up tackling the change we want to bring in ourselves. It presents a metaphor of the elephant and the rider. We generally assume that the rider controls and should control the elephant, but generally it happens the other way around. Here, the elephant stands for the emotional side of our mind and the rider stands for the logical rational side of our mind. In most cases, when change knocks our door, the emotional side of our mind takes over the logical side. Medically, one knows what are the tips for good and healthy diet, but the emotions always tilt towards gratifying impulses. Both the elephant and the rider need to follow the same goal. The elephant should have the motivation and the rider should have the clear direction. We ourselves many times face rider's problem. That is, we overanalyze and keep on planning for ages, but we don't act. The more we analyze, the worse the change looks. Most often than not, when we fail, we find a person to blame. The book explains that it's never a people's problem, but a situational problem. If one adjusts the situation a bit, things become very easy. The authors present an interesting but a simple story of a lady who was a golf player and she started finding that her technique and form were getting weaker. She went to an expert. The expert did not try to understand the problem by knowing her psyche or past problems or her past technique, but he suggested smaller changes like loosening the grip on the golf stick. To her surprise, the lady found that by discovering smaller and simpler solutions, her game started improving. Authors say most times bigger problems have smaller solutions, but the rider sitting over the elephant only thinks about the grand solutions and grand design, which never come. The book at the beginning tells about an experiment done with the moviegoers. At the start of the movie, people were handed 3 buckets of popcorns, but some were given bigger buckets and some were given middle-sized buckets. It was found that people with bigger buckets ate more popcorns than people with smaller buckets. When people came out of the theater, they were asked the question as to why people with bigger buckets ate more. No one had the logic. Authors say if you gave this data to researchers, they would worry about health, diet, attitudes, etc. However, the simple solution is give all a smaller bucket. Instead of convincing people and to change their behavior, it is easier to change the buckets. Authors give a very good example of parents. When they have children, they embrace many unpleasant changes. In fact, they volunteer for it, waking up in middle of a night, fulfilling odd demands of a child, spoiling the clothes, and so on. But they immediately get used to the change. In our lives, we get used to bigger changes than situational or organizational changes. But we do, and we move on. The elephant overpowers the rider most times. We all set the alarm clock thinking about grand designs and what we can achieve if we wake up in time. That's what the rider thinks. But the moment the clock rings up, the elephant in us presses the snooze button. Although the rider has many strengths and can plan meticulously, but in crisis, the rider plans too much and suffers analysis paralysis. Authors equate this tendency with the rider who keeps on spinning the elephant, thereby never reaching the destination. Finding the bright spots is easier said than done. The authors list the words on the site Learn English at Home that describe the emotions. Here is the list: angry, annoyed, appalled, apprehensive, delighted, disappointed, ecstatic, excited, ashamed, bewildered, betrayed, confused, confident, cheated, cross, depressed, emotional, envious, embarrassed, furious, frightened, great, happy, and horrified. Did you notice that out of these 24 words, only 6 were positive? In another experiment, a psychologist found 558 words of emotions, out of which only 38% were positive. Authors call this a problem-focused attitude. He asks parents if their child score A in most papers, B in 1 or 2, and F in 1, where would they focus their attention? Naturally, we all have this problem bias. The rider needs to develop solution focus and not problem focus to maintain and manage the change. Authors also talk about a syndrome called decision paralysis. They say that if we have multiple options to solve the problem, we prefer to move back to the default plan rather than try out new options. This is natural human tendency. The rider prefers analyzing instead of doing. The rider must be presented SMART goals, which means scientific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. Authors also talk about breaking the change management into smaller achievements. They call this shrink the change approach. They give a very interesting example. A local car wash ran a promotion featuring loyalty cards. Every time customers brought a car wash, they got a stamp on their cards, and when they filled up their cards with 8 stamps, they get a free wash. Another set of customers at the same car wash got slightly different loyalty card. They needed to collect 10 stamps rather than 8 to get a free car wash, but they were given a head start. When they received their cards, 2 stamps had already been added. The goal was the same for both the set of customers: buy 8 additional car washes and get a reward. But the psychology was different. In one case, you are 20% off the way towards the goal, and in the other case, you are starting from scratch. A few months later, only 19% of the 8 stamp customers had earned a free wash versus 34% of the Head Start group. Carrying forward their argument and advice to train the elephant to learn how to fail on the way and grow with it, they say, any new quest, even one that is ultimately successful, is going to involve failure. You can't learn to salsa dance without falling. You can't learn to be an inventor or a nurse or a scientist without failing. Nor can you learn to transform the way products are developed in your firm or change minds about urban poverty or restore loving communication with your spouse without failing. and the elephant really hates to fail. They also talk about the habit of social cues. When in doubt, the elephant tries to follow what others do. In olden days of opera and in modern sitcoms, people are placed strategically in audience to laugh and to clap, to give others the cues and encourage others to do so. However, in some cases, the elephant and the rider are alone. Then the herd technique needs to be used differently to bring about the desired change. Generally, in hotels, a card is placed requesting the guests to reuse the towel to save the environment, which in turn saves the cost and labor for the hotel too. But the guests generally don't follow this, as they don't have a social hints as to what others are doing in their rooms. In one hotel, a new technique was used, and it was mentioned in the card that majority of their guests reused the towel more than once. This worked. In the final chapter of the book, Chip and Dan suggests to keep on taking smaller steps. They say that once you take the right step, the first thing to do is to recognize and celebrate that first step. You have directed the rider, you have motivated the elephant, you have shaped the path, and now your team is moving or you are moving. The book, through the main metaphor of the elephant and the rider, thus suggests to bring change, to manage the change, and to celebrate the change. Thank you.